What if he had spared her before, again and again, across lifetimes, across empires, across entire worlds forgotten by time? This is the story of Layla, a woman who should have died in a car crash, but didn't, because death himself refused to let her go. Now she's remembering things she never lived, dreaming of temples she's never seen, and being hunted by beings older than angels who say her soul should never have existed. She's not just a survivor. She's the final seal, the last soul keeping heaven's design from unraveling, and she has a choice to make: become the goddess of endings, or burn the fate written for her and rewrite everything. This is not a love story. This is a war between memory and destiny, and it begins with death whispering her name. The world outside her hospital window pulsed with a stillness that wasn't natural. Layla sat upright in the sterile white bed, her hands trembling as she tried to remember the crash. Glass, screams, the smell of burning rubber and blood. But the moment of impact was blank. She should have been dead. Every doctor said so, but she wasn't, and she could still feel the fingers that touched her in the void, cold, eternal, and impossibly gentle. Her heart beat with a rhythm that no longer felt like hers. Something had been taken, or given. She didn't know which was worse. Each night since the accident, Layla had been waking at exactly 3:33 a.m., her body paralyzed, the room swimming in cold shadow. She couldn't scream, couldn't breathe, only listen as whispers slithered around her head like smoke. At first, she thought it was trauma, but tonight, when she looked into the mirror, her breath stopped. For a split second, her reflection blinked before she did. Not a glitch, not a trick, a warning, or a presence. She reached toward the glass, and her reflection didn't move. Down the hall, a nurse muttered into her phone. They said she flatlined. 3 minutes, no heartbeat, and then she just sat up. Layla heard the words, but couldn't process them. Her chest ached like it had been torn open and sewn back together by something inhuman. She opened her palm and saw the faint imprint of a feather, black, scorched into her skin like a birthmark. And when she touched it, the hospital lights flickered. Later, a man in a dark coat watched her from across the courtyard. He stood beneath a flickering lamp, unmoving, unblinking, his face hidden in the shadow of a hood. No one else seemed to notice him. When she looked again, he was gone, leaving only the faint scent of rain and something older, something like dust and forgotten stone. Her heartbeat stuttered. Something was watching her, but not with malice, with longing. She began hearing fragments of a name in her dreams, whispers across a field of ash. Azrael. Always that same voice, low, resonant, familiar in a way that clawed at her bones. She dreamt of a temple burning in the desert, and a silver-eyed man screaming her name. Each time she woke, she felt further from herself, more connected to something ancient, and when she looked in the mirror now, her eyes seemed too old for her face. Layla touches the scorched mark on her hand. It pulses with cold heat. A gust of wind blows through the closed window. The shadow of wings passes across the wall. She whispers, trembling, "What the hell is happening to me?" The dream sharpened that night. Not mist, not fragments. A world. A stone hallway dripping with candle wax and blood. Layla ran barefoot through marble corridors, chased by wings made of flame. At the end of the hall stood the man again, eyes like dying stars, robe torn and stained with memory. His voice cracked the air. "Run, Layla. They know you're awake." She awoke, gasping, the taste of smoke in her mouth. Her sheets were soaked, not with sweat, with water, salt water. In her waking hours, the veil between realities thinned. The shadows behind corners lingered, reflections lagged, and her heart, her once steady heart, would race for no reason when she passed cemeteries or heard church bells. She began researching the name Azrael. Myths, lore, religions. In every culture, he was the same, the angel of death. But why would death whisper her name like a promise? She left the hospital that afternoon, craving the open sky. But as she stepped into the sunlight, time halted. The wind froze. Cars stood still. People stopped mid-step. And then she saw him, Azrael, standing in the center of the street, untouched by time. No wings, just those eyes. And that voice, spoken without lips. You remember me, don't you?" Her knees buckled. And then everything snapped back. She was alone. But not. Azrael began appearing at the edges of her perception, his presence like a pressure behind her eyes, his voice threading through her thoughts. He didn't speak often, but when he did, it shattered her. "They want to unmake you," he said once, as she walked alone at dusk. "Because you were never meant to live this time." His words lingered longer than they should, like echoes from a place that didn't follow rules. Layla began journaling, sketching what she saw in her dreams: towers made of bone, oceans that bled light, symbols no language could explain. She was remembering. But it wasn't just memory. It was recognition. Her life now was a faint reflection of something far older, something buried in her blood. And with each night, the memories clawed closer to the surface. One night, her reflection doesn't blink. Instead, it speaks, "You died, and he broke the universe to bring you back." Layla couldn't breathe when she walked into the mystic's tent. The air was thick with burning herbs, the scent of rose and smoke sticking to her skin. The woman didn't ask why she came. She only looked into Layla's eyes and said, "He found you again, didn't he?" The mystic placed her fingers on Layla's forehead and whispered in a language that felt like thunder and lullabies. The world spun. She fell backward into herself, and then into someone else. A warrior woman with ash-covered skin, gripping a blood-stained blade. A queen kneeling before a golden-winged figure as flames consumed her throne. A peasant girl drowned by order of the clergy. Over and over, always the same eyes watching her die, always his hands catching her soul as it left her body. Azrael, witness, executioner, lover. Back in the tent, Layla sobbed. The mystic only nodded. "He has followed you across centuries, and you always forget, until it's too late." The realization hit like a collapsing temple. Her soul wasn't just old, it was marked, and something, some higher force, was resetting the world every time she got too close to the truth. As she walked home that night, the city pulsed differently. Sounds were sharper, colors deeper, time thicker. Layla passed an old mural she'd never seen before. It showed a woman with silver eyes standing beside death himself, but her face, it was her own. Beneath it, scrawled in faded paint, "The soul that remembers breaks the cycle." Her dreams changed after that. No longer visions, memories. A kiss in a temple before battle. A betrayal by a brother cloaked in flame. A promise whispered across lifetimes. "I will find you. Always." Her connection to Azrael wasn't madness. It was ancient law, and its breaking had rippled across dimensions. Layla wakes to find the same symbol from the mural carved into her bedroom wall, in ash, and a single black feather rests on her pillow, still warm. The storm came without wind. It wasn't weather. It was judgment. Layla stood on the rooftop, drawn there by a whisper she couldn't ignore. The skyline shimmered, and then he descended. A being of blinding light, wings of flame folded like scythes, eyes burning gold without pupil or mercy. A seraphim. Not a vision. Real. He hovered above her like a verdict. "You are a wound in the veil," he said, voice like breaking glass. "And wounds must be closed." Azrael appeared in an instant, emerging from the shadow cast by the seraph's flame. No wings, no weapon, just a look of quiet fury. "She's under my protection." The rooftop shook with the weight of that sentence. Lightning split the air. The seraph struck first, and Azrael caught the blade with bare hands. The scream of metal on bone echoed across the city, but no one below looked up. Time was frozen again. This battle didn't belong to the mortal realm. Layla watched, frozen, as divine power clashed around her. The air cracked. Marble statues shattered on nearby rooftops as Azrael's blood hit the stone. He was losing, his movements slower than they should be. The seraph cut him across the shoulder, severing not just flesh, but light. And in that moment, Layla felt it. Azrael was fading, not just wounded, becoming mortal. Every act of rebellion drained him further. She screamed, and the sound pierced the stillness. The seraph turned, blade raised toward her, and for the first time Layla acted, not with logic, but with memory. She raised her hand. Light poured from her palm, cold, white, ancient. The seraph recoiled, hissing, not in pain, But in recognition, "She remembers," he muttered. "It's already begun." And with a gust of burning wind, he vanished. Azrael collapsed into her arms. His skin was too warm, his breath uneven. "You shouldn't have seen that," he whispered. "You weren't meant to wake up yet." Or she cradled him as the world resumed around them. Sirens, lights, the hum of the city unaware of the war being fought above their heads. The wound on his chest glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Later, as she washes the blood from her hands, Layla finds her pupils flickering with silver light. The mirror steams up from no heat source, written in condensation. Not just human. Never were. Her grandmother's attic had always felt wrong. Too cold, even in summer. Dust that never settled. Layla never questioned it. Until now. Something pulled her there in the early hours before dawn, barefoot in a sleep-drenched haze. She found it beneath the floorboards. A blackened leather book wrapped in faded red thread. No title. Just a seal burned into the cover. A symbol she'd seen before, carved into her wall by ash. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The pages moved like silk dipped in shadow. Symbols rearranged themselves. Some pages shimmered with golden script. Others were stained with what looked like dried blood. But the words, they told her story. Not just her current life, but all the others. Her deaths, her meetings with Azrael, her last words each time, over and over. Each entry dated with no known calendar. And at the very end, a blank page, her name written above it. Beneath, expiration pending. Panicked, Layla brought the book to Azrael. He recoiled at first. "Where did you find this?" he demanded, breath catching. She told him. He closed the book gently, as if it could bite. "That book shouldn't exist," he whispered. "It's the registry of forbidden fates, souls that were never meant to cross." His voice cracked as he said the last word. She finally saw it. Not just fear, guilt. He had rewritten fate once, maybe more. Layla asked why she was marked for deletion. Azrael hesitated before answering. "Because you were born from two realms. Half of you belongs to a place older than heaven, older than me. And your soul," he looked away, "your soul is the key to both destruction and salvation. That's why they want it gone." His hand brushed hers, and something passed between them. A jolt of pain and memory. A child screaming. A tower collapsing. The sound of wings folding forever. They burned the book that night, or tried to. It screamed. 1,000 voices crying out in one moment. But when the fire died, the book was still there, intact. Only one thing had changed. The blank page at the end was now filled with new words. She remembers. And she chooses. Layla touched the ink. It smeared like blood. From outside they heard bells. Not church bells. Funeral bells. That night, Layla dreams of herself walking across a bridge of bones. At the other end waits a child version of her. The child says, "The cycle ends when you kill me." The city was no longer silent. Whispers chased her footsteps. Shadows pooled in places they didn't belong. And a strange man had begun following her. Close enough to be felt. Never close o sufficiente para ser confrontado. Then, one afternoon, as she stepped through a veil of rain that hadn't been forecast, he spoke her name. Not like a stranger, like a brother. "You don't remember me either, do you?" he asked, stepping from the fog with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. His name was Cassiel, and his presence hit her like déjà vu dipped in grief. Azrael appeared within seconds. Not like before. No quiet power, no calm. This time he came like a storm in a man's body. Cassiel didn't flinch. "Still playing protector?" he taunted. The air between them crackled with centuries of tension, and for the first time, Layla saw Azrael as something more than her savior. He was haunted. By regret. By this man. "He was my brother," Azrael told her later. "And once, he was yours." That last part made her blood run cold. Cassiel had once been an angel of fate, now fallen. His role had been to observe. Instead, he had loved. He and Layla, in a past life, had shared a bond forbidden even among the forbidden. It had been Azrael who ended that cycle, and Cassiel had never forgiven him. But now he returned not as an enemy, but as an option. "Azrael's breaking," Cassiel whispered to her under moonlight. "If you want to survive this, You'll need someone who hasn't been corrupted by love. The tension burned like coals beneath silk. Every interaction between the three dripped with subtext: betrayal, loyalty, longing, and wounds deeper than flesh. Layla began to question everything. If Cassiel once loved her, could she still feel something? Was her fate a choice? Or was she simply orbiting a pattern set in place by divine hands? That night, Layla dreams of herself holding hands with both Azrael and Cassiel. Standing on a cliff, one will fall. One will be chosen. She wakes up with both of their names burned into her collarbone. Layla could feel it now, a pressure in her chest like a chain wrapped tight around her soul. Azrael confirmed her suspicion. Her soul was anchored, unnaturally, to both the mortal realm and the divine. Unstable. Dangerous. If someone severed the wrong connection, it wouldn't just kill her. It could collapse the barrier between worlds. You weren't just brought back, Azrael said. You were rewritten, spliced. A ritual was proposed. Forbidden, of course, but necessary. If Layla could temporarily unmoor her soul, they could uncover who or what had altered her thread of fate. The ritual required three: the soul, Layla; the guide, Azrael; and the shadow, Cassiel. Reluctantly, all agreed. In a ruined church overgrown with ivy and memory, the ritual began. Candles flickered without wind. Symbols bled onto stone. Layla's body convulsed as her soul slipped between veils. What she saw was not time, but possibility. Every version of her life fractured and laid bare. In one, she lived a quiet life as a mortal. In another, she ruled a kingdom of the dead. In yet another, she destroyed heaven itself. In each, Azrael was there, sometimes savior, sometimes enemy. Cassiel's role, however, always changed. Sometimes lover, sometimes executioner, sometimes betrayer. She screamed herself back into her body, blood from her nose, hands shaking. But the ritual left behind a relic, a vision etched into her skin, a broken hourglass with wings. Azrael stared at it in silence. That's the mark of the soul unwritten, he said. You're not just remembering, Layla. You're beginning to write your own fate. Cassiel pulls Layla aside and whispers, There's something Azrael isn't telling you. He didn't just break the rules for you. He killed for you. The sky turned violet. Not figuratively. Literally. Stars rearranged themselves overnight. The moon began to flicker. Across the globe, people started waking up with memories that weren't theirs. Azrael confirmed the worst. The celestial realm had noticed the anomaly. And it wasn't just angels coming anymore. The weavers of time had begun hunting. Layla was no longer a secret. She was a threat. They fled, through mortal cities, forgotten temples, and cracks in the world where reality folded like wet parchment. In the astral wastes, a realm between moments, time moved sideways, and thoughts became weapons. Here, Layla saw what her presence had caused. Broken timelines, lost souls wandering without purpose, echoes of herself staring back with hollow eyes. Azrael grew weaker, Cassiel stronger. Layla caught him watching her when he thought she wouldn't notice, his eyes full of grief and something close to hope. They'll take you from both of us, he murmured once. But they'll never break me again. She didn't ask what he meant. She was afraid she already knew. In the stillness between two realms, Layla asked Azrael if he regretted saving her. He answered without hesitation. Never, but I regret not saving you sooner. In all the lives before, I waited too long. She kissed him then, not out of romance, but out of defiance. They were hunted, condemned, but for that moment, they were only two souls who remembered love. As they cross a bridge made of light, a rip opens in the sky. From it descends a throne. 6 wings, no face, burning with divine fire. You will not pass, it says. Time halts. Again. The throne did not speak again. It simply moved, its presence rewriting the world around it. Trees dissolved, mountains folded, and from the void, a massive obsidian door rose behind it. The 13th gate. A place of judgment. Azrael had no choice. He stepped forward, trembling for the first time. Layla reached for him, but he pulled away. Only I can pass. If I fail, remember me as I was before all of this. The gate consumed him. Inside, he faced what no angel dared. His own memory. A realm built from his worst moments. His failure to protect Layla. the lifetimes he watched her die, the soul he once willingly delivered to the seraphim before he ever knew her. And the truth, in one life, he killed her by his own hand, not from cruelty, from command, from fear. Outside, Layla waited, tears falling without understanding why. Cassiel stood beside her, quiet for once. "You shouldn't have to love something that's broken," he said. But then again, neither should I. And for the first time, she saw his pain not as a weapon, but as a wound still bleeding centuries later. Azrael emerged, bruised and breathless. The gate closed behind him and shattered. On his back now, blackened wings, burned, but whole. He had passed, not by resisting judgment, but by accepting it. He was no longer death, not fully. He was something else now, something in between. Layla looks at Azrael's hands. Where once was bone and light, now is flesh, mortal. A tear of joy forms in her eye, until she notices the sky behind him begin to bleed. They found shelter in a forgotten monastery built between reflections, the mirror realm, a dimension shaped by echoes of the self. Layla stepped through the veil and met her first self, a version of her that had lived and died in a time before language. This Layla was not kind. She was furious. "You keep trusting them," she spat. "You keep dying for them." Room by room, Layla encountered herself. Every iteration, every failure, every betrayal. One self was blind, having gouged her own eyes to avoid seeing Azrael's death. Another wore Cassiel's feather as a necklace. The worst stood silent in the center of a hall of cracked mirrors, bleeding from her wrists. "You always choose love over truth," she whispered, "and it always kills you." The realm tested her resolve. In one room, she saw a future in which she destroyed the world. In another, one where she ruled beside Azrael, but never touched him. The reflections pulled at her will. Doubt grew. Was her love truly her own? Or had it been scripted by divine obsession and celestial grief? In the final chamber, Layla found a mirror that didn't reflect anything, only a doorway. She stepped through it and found herself alone in a black void. A child version of herself waited there, silent, holding a dagger made of light. "You want to be free?" the child asked. "Then kill the part of you that obeys." Layla raises the blade to her own chest, not in surrender, but in rebellion. The screen goes black. A heartbeat echoes 3 times, then silence. In the wake of the astral siege, when Layla and Azrael should have had a moment of breath, the world seemed too still, not peaceful, tense, the kind of silence that sits behind locked doors, waiting to pounce. Layla could feel it, something close, familiar, watching. Cassiel, now distant and strangely calm, began to speak in riddles again. He kept glancing skyward, murmuring things she didn't understand, until he said the words, "They never stopped watching us, Layla, even now." That's when she noticed it, a white feather, too pure to be his, lying where none had stepped. Azrael sensed it too. The air shifted, brittle and sharp, like frost over burning coal. They gathered in a forgotten temple, a safe house between realms, and the truth clawed its way to the surface. It came first in fragmented memories. Layla remembered Cassiel holding her as she died, and handing her soul over to a being not of mercy, but judgment. Her heart shattered, as the memory confirmed what Azrael had feared for centuries. Cassiel had betrayed them before. Not once, repeatedly, always under the guise of protecting her. When confronted, Cassiel didn't deny it. He only stepped forward and said, "And you would do the same, Azrael, if you knew what she really was." Layla demanded to know the truth, but neither brother answered directly. They argued like old gods, their pain centuries old and layered in shadows. Cassiel's voice shook. "Every time she remembers, the universe bleeds. I tried to stop it. I tried to save her from you, but she keeps choosing you." Layla stood between them, her hands glowing with power she could barely contain. Her voice cracked with rage. "I'm not a war to be won between you. I'm not a weapon. I am done being pulled apart by 2 broken angels clinging to the past." The temple quaked, dust falling from the ceiling, the floor splitting between her feet, and in that rupture, something ancient surged upward, the seal of the final iteration, glowing beneath her skin like a brand. Cassiel paled. Azrael bowed his head. Time had run out. In the end, Cassiel fled, whether in shame, fury or sorrow. Layla did not know. But she knew this. One of her deepest bonds had cracked. A connection once sacred was now lost in the wind. She watched Azrael walk into the dark with guilt in his bones, and love still burning behind his tired eyes. And she stood alone, stronger, clearer, and more dangerous than she had ever been. That night, Layla wakes with a searing pain across her spine. In the mirror behind her, black sigils glow beneath her skin, and a voice speaks from inside her bones. The last seal is opening. Are you ready to end them? They traveled far beyond the mortal world, past the last horizon where time itself lost form. There, at the edge of existence, stood a mountain made of shattered halos. Inside it pulsed the heart of death, the source of Azrael's original power. But it was not his alone. As they approached, the heart pulsed in sync with Layla's heartbeat. It recognized her, as if she had been here before, as if part of her had never left. The heart was beautiful and monstrous, a floating sphere of fractured light surrounded by whispers and shadows. It radiated not cold, but memory. Every soul ever touched by death echoed within its core. Layla stepped closer and saw her own faces reflected in it, across time, across lives, across deaths. And then she understood. She wasn't just someone Azrael loved. She had once been his equal, his mirror, his balance. But the thrones had shattered her essence, scattering it through time. Azrael spoke with a voice unlike before, softer, sadder. They feared what we could be together, so they made us forget, made me forget. I only remembered because I loved you more than I feared them. Layla's eyes filled with tears as she placed her hand on the heart. It welcomed her, and it offered a choice. Merge with it, become the new guardian of the passage between life and death, or destroy it and unravel the very system that kept the worlds in balance. The decision tore her open. Fusion meant power beyond comprehension, but it meant sacrifice. She would no longer be reborn, no longer human. She would become something outside of time, tethered to every death and every birth for eternity. Azrael, now mortal, offered his last fragment of angelic power to help complete the bond. If I have to lose my wings so you can finally fly, then so be it. And with that, he let go of the last divine part of himself. The ritual was agonizing, blinding light. Blood spilled from their eyes, their mouths. The world wept as Layla fused with the heart. When it ended, she rose from the crater surrounded by flame and silence. Her voice was no longer singular. It carried the timbre of every self she had ever been. Her eyes held stars. Her skin bore runes. She was not a god. She was a threshold. The sky above them cracked, not in violence but in awe, and from beyond a new constellation formed, spelling her name in a language no living soul could read. With the heart now inside her, Layla's very presence altered the balance of life. Graves became doorways. Mourning turned into prophecy. Across every corner of the world, those once touched by death awakened, not fully alive, not entirely gone, souls in between. Her army, the forgotten rebellion. They rose not with vengeance, but with reverence, drawn by her pulse, by the song she didn't know she was singing. The thrones reacted with fury. No longer descending one by one, they arrived in legions, wheels of fire and judgment, their chants loud enough to split the sky. Layla met them on the horizon of the in-between, her army behind her, Azrael at her side, wingless, but still a warrior. The battle was unlike any ever fought. Every sword clashed with a memory. Every shield broke beneath forgiveness. Layla moved like light incarnate, her hands shaping new realities as she fought. Cassiel returned, broken, bloodied, but changed. He knelt before her in the middle of the battlefield and offered his blade. I betrayed you, but not again. Let me be your shadow, if nothing else. She said nothing, but when she turned to fight, he rose beside her. Brother, lover, betrayer, ally, all roles at once. Together they struck at the thrones, not with death, but with something more terrifying to them, free will. Layla began to rewrite the world mid-battle. She spoke words that bent existence. Laws that had ruled for millennia collapsed. The gates of judgment cracked. The souls she carried were no longer weapons. They were witnesses. And the thrones began to fall, one by one. not in flame, but in silence, forgotten, faded, erased from stories. When the dust settled, the battlefield was not drenched in blood, but in memory. Layla had not destroyed the world. She had unwritten the lie it was built upon. And standing in that silence, Azrael wept. For her, for the souls, for the end. But Layla did not cry. She turned to the stars and whispered, "Not yet. There's one more truth left to tell." The stars blinked, and one by one, they began to fall, each one bearing a name, Layla's name. Over and over, Layla awoke to stillness. No battles, no voices, only a soft wind and the sound of breathing beside her. Azrael, finally asleep, not as an angel, not as a warrior, but as a man. His face was pale. His chest rose slowly. Whatever remained of his divine thread was burning out. She could feel it. Her connection to him, once infinite, was now flickering like a dying flame. And she knew he would not last long in this world. She carried him to the summit of the world, where clouds drifted below and light poured from every horizon. There, she sat beside him, whispering the names of every life they'd shared, every love, every loss, and when he finally opened his eyes, he smiled through tears. "I remember them all now, and I would do it again. For you." He took her hand. "Let me go, so you can finally live." She refused, and so, for the first time, she did what even the angels feared. She bargained with fate. She offered herself, not as sacrifice, but as a new constant. She would take Azrael's place. She would be the threshold, the guardian, the memory keeper. And in exchange, the world would grant Azrael a life. One. Just one. Human. Imperfect, but real. The universe paused, and it agreed. Azrael's soul passed into rebirth. A new life awaited. Layla stood at the edge of time, now alone, but radiant. She had lost everything, and become everything. As she vanishes into the light, her last words echo across the stars. Let no soul ever be forgotten again. In the new world, children dreamed of a woman with silver eyes and a voice like thunder wrapped in honey, a woman who stood at the edge of death and smiled. Layla was now a myth, a legend. And yet, she walked the earth, not often and never in the same form, but always when she was needed. A girl on the brink of despair, a mother mourning a child, a soul afraid to cross. She came not as death, but as memory. In a quiet village far from cities, a boy was born with eyes the color of ancient skies. He never spoke of angels, but when he touched books, they glowed faintly. And when he dreamed, he saw a woman's hand reaching for him through falling stars. He grew up kind, strong, with a strange ache in his soul for something he had never known. His name was Ezra. The world, no longer ruled by prophecy or fate, began to thrive, not because it was perfect, but because it remembered. Layla's rebellion had made space for grief, for healing, for free choice. People prayed to her without altars. They remembered her in lullabies and in the way they forgave each other. And one day, as Ezra stood alone on a quiet cliff, watching the sunrise, a breeze carried a whisper to his ear. "I never left you." He turned, and though he saw no one, he smiled. She walks where the veils grow thin, not to guide the dead, but to remind the living that every end is a doorway. Her name is not spoken with fear anymore. It is carried in poems, in the space between heartbeats, in the final breath before peace. Layla became the soul keeper of the new age, not a ruler, not a god, but a story passed between generations. Some say she still appears, hand outstretched, whenever someone forgets who they are. Others say she is the wind that lifts grieving hands to the sky. But all agree on one thing. She rewrote the world, and in the stars above, two constellations always shine brighter than the rest. One shaped like wings, the other like a flame. They pulse in rhythm, like two hearts, forever remembering.